Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of What's Going On. Last time we talked about climate change and a little bit about the COP26 conference, which started on October 31st and ended on November 12th. Today we will discuss two of the goals of the conference: cutting greenhouse emissions, which are gases that trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere, and stopping deforestation, which is the cutting down or destruction of forests. A major goal of the COP26 conference was to set goals to cut greenhouse emissions by 2030 and beyond. Two of the major greenhouse emissions include CO2, or carbon dioxide, which is released through burning fossil fuels like oil and coal, and methane, which is a gas released by agricultural activities like farming and landfills. Over 100 countries have made pledges to become net zero or carbon neutral, meaning that they will no longer add to greenhouse gases already in the air. For example, the US and the EU set goals to be carbon neutral by 2050. China pledged to be carbon neutral by 2060 and India by 2070. These four countries are the biggest emitters of carbon dioxide in the world, so reaching targets will be very important to slowing down climate change. Becoming carbon neutral or reaching net zero can be achieved through a combination of different ways. First is to reduce the amount of CO2 that is being released, which can be done by switching from dirty energy sources like coal, oil, and gas to clean energy sources like solar, wind, geothermal, and hydroelectric. Another promising source of energy is hydrogen, which only releases heat and water vapor. However, the methods for producing hydrogen are still dirty, so technology will need to be improved before this becomes a truly clean source of energy. Another way to reach net zero is to recapture carbon dioxide that has been released in the air. One way to do this is through technology. This year, a project called Orca in Iceland built the world's largest CO2 capture plant, which runs on geothermal energy. The plant captures around 4,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide a year from the air, which is then pumped underground where it mixes with water and turns into stone as it cools. 4,000 tons is a lot of carbon, but it's not nearly enough to slow down climate change. So this technology will need to be greatly expanded, especially to other countries. Another, less expensive way to capture carbon is through planting trees or reforestation. Many countries are already doing this, but it also has some limitations. First is that trees require a lot of land, which not all countries have, and most countries probably won't be able to plant enough trees to make up for the CO2 that they release into the air. The other disadvantage is that any carbon captured by trees will be re-released if they are destroyed, for instance by a wildfire or storm. However, replanting forests and stopping deforestation is still a very good way to slow down climate change. Another major goal of COP26 was to stop deforestation. More than 100 countries made a commitment to end deforestation by 2030. Some of the countries included in this list are the US, the UK, China, Brazil, Canada, Indonesia, Russia, Japan, and many, many others. Altogether, these countries cover around 85% of the forests in the world. 28 countries also made a commitment to remove deforestation from global trade of food and agricultural products such as palm oil and cocoa. Ending deforestation is one of the most important steps in fighting climate change for two reasons. First, forests absorb a large amount of CO2, one of the gases that causes global warming, from the atmosphere. In a way, they kind of act like big CO2 sponges. Second, the destruction of forests can add more CO2 to the air because the gases trapped by the trees get released back into the atmosphere, especially when they are burned. Forests are also very important for a number of other reasons. Forests provide us with clean water, healthy soils, and 25% of the world's population also relies on forests for their livelihoods, especially in poorer countries. Finally, 80% of the plant and animal species on land live in forests, so stopping deforestation is also very important to protecting biodiversity on our planet. So far, over 100 countries have pledged $19.2 billion worth of funds to promote the end of deforestation. Climate experts are happy about the agreement. However, they do have some skepticism. During COP26, which was held in Paris in 2016, many countries also made pledges to stop deforestation. However, the promises were not kept, and very little was done to slow down deforestation at all. Hopefully, this time around, countries will take their commitments more seriously, and the goal of stopping, maybe even reversing deforestation by 2030, will be met. That's all we have for this episode, but if you want to learn more about the COP26 conference, be sure to check out the links in the video description below. We'll see you next time on What's Going On.